Welcome back. Now, the past couple of weeks, I've brought you news about the Chinese government recruiting Australian scientists to a secretive program called the 1,000 Talents Plan, where their research and IP can be patented in China, even if it's been funded by Australian research and grants. As a result of these stories, Andrew Hastie and James Patterson wrote to the Prime Minister asking for a foreign interference inquiry into Australian universities. Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton agreed, asking the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence and Security to conduct this inquiry. And the chair of that committee, Andrew Hastie, joins me now. Welcome to the program again, Andrew. Now,
Good evening, Sharri.
You demanded this inquiry after the revelations in the Australian that the Chinese government have been recruiting Australian scientists to this program, to the 1,000 Talents Plan and other similar programs like it, where we revealed that many of their patents had been lodged in China, often unbeknownst to their Australian university employers. What so concerned you about this story that made you call for an inquiry into the university sector?
Sharri, the lack of transparency, the lack of accountability, and also the denials which we read in your piece prompted me, James Patterson, and many other colleagues, not just on our side of the House, but also colleagues like Anthony Byrne, were on Labor's side, very concerned about the lack of transparency. And so we have big questions about our university sector. As you know, the government over the last 4 or 5 years has been making very significant national security reforms to protect our sovereignty. Those reforms act a bit like lattice work. There are still gaps, and I think in the university sector, your story, and there are other examples as well of academic freedom being impinged upon, the Drew Pavlou case, the Elaine Pearson case, leading to a number of us calling for an inquiry, and so we're glad it's happening.
You're now working out the terms of reference with the committee. Have you finalised that yet? Have you worked out exactly what it's going to examine?
Well, it's come to the Intelligence and Security Committee. We have quite a few Labor front benches in the committee, and we've got some great people on our side as well. We want to do our due diligence. This is a very, very serious inquiry, and we don't have to report until July of next year, so we're going to take some briefings first as we refine the terms of reference, and then we'll get started in earnest. But it's really important that we identify the right issues, and we proceed with diligence and with caution, but we are certainly going to look very, very closely at this sector.
Is it too early to ask you who might appear before the inquiry? I mean, the United States Senate had a similar inquiry. They released their report in November 2019 into the 1,000 Talents and other Chinese government recruitment programs. You know, would you be getting people from the FBI, where they've launched more than 1,000 investigations into the actual theft or attempted theft of intellectual property, that's American intellectual property, by the Chinese government?
I can't really talk about who would appear before our committee. Suffice to say that we'll be asking for submissions from whole of society. We look forward to receiving those, particularly from the universities, and I suspect we'll be hearing from our own agencies, but also potentially international players as well. So it's not my job to get ahead of the committee. We're having those discussions internally, but that is the normal practice when we have a big inquiry like this. We get a lot of interest from around the country and also internationally. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we heard from a number of voices.
Just broadly speaking, how corrupted do you think the university sector is in Australia by the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, this is a good question, Sharri, and that's why we're doing the inquiry. We don't know, and we certainly want to make sure that our university sector is robust, that Australian taxpayers who invest millions of dollars every year into research grants and also the sector itself, that they're getting their money's worth, and that the university sector is pulling in the national interest. The Prime Minister at the Australian Defence Force Academy in his strategic update 8 weeks or so ago said that sovereignty is going to be the organising principle for our country going forward. The world post-pandemic is going to be more dangerous, more disorderly and poorer. And so every single part of Australian society needs to be working towards our national interest. This inquiry is about bringing transparency and accountability to the university sector, and that's why all Australians should welcome it.
Look, the other very significant announcement in the foreign interference space just in recent weeks has been, of course, the national security legislation that allows the Commonwealth to effectively tear up deals made with any foreign government by state governments or councils, including, of course, Victoria's BRI deal, but also sister city deals. There has been criticism, however, that these new laws will not cover the Port of Darwin lease, which, as you know, because you've been very critical of this decision to lease the Port of Darwin to a Chinese company. Do you think this legislation should be including private companies, that it shouldn't exclude things like this? And do you think the Port of Darwin deal should be reviewed?
Well, firstly, Sharri, number one, we haven't seen the bill, so I don't know the exact detail of the bill. The bill's job is to protect the national interests, and so it thereby allows the Commonwealth to annul bilateral arrangements entered into by Australian local and state governments with a foreign power that is detrimental to our national interest. As to the Port of Darwin, I've been open to the divestment of the Port of Darwin, should our government choose. It's not something I'm ideologically opposed to. In fact, I, like many Australians, were deeply frustrated and angered by the decision to sell off the Port of Darwin or lease it for 99 years. But that would have to be a decision for the government of the day. They would have to make that on a range of factors. And of course, like anything in politics, there are always trade-offs. So my view is with statecraft, you should have every option on the table insofar as it serves your interests.
So is this, just to be clear, is this something you are lobbying behind the scenes on, or it's just more of a wait-and-see approach?
Well, no, I think Anthony Albanese's sort of put a balloon up in the sky and tried to develop this into a wedge issue, but he's been completely absent from this discussion, and he's a bit of a Johnny-come-lately on the Port of Darwin anyway. So I think this is a bit of wedge politics. He's wrong-footed on these issues anyway, so I suspect he won't be pursuing it all that much. In the meantime, we've done a lot of things as a government. The Espionage Foreign Interference Bill, strengthening FIRB, excluding Huawei and ZTE from our 5G network, protecting our digital sovereignty. We've done a range of different things to protect our national interest, and that's some good that has come from the Port of Darwin decision.
Yeah. Andrew, when you started speaking out about these issues about Chinese government infiltration and influence in Australia, espionage and hacking, you were a bit of a lone wolf. Now, as you've just described, listing those measures, the government has really come to the table, and there's been no stronger government than the current one in terms of really trying to stop foreign interference in Australian life, including politics. It must be, how hard has it been for you to get everyone to understand what's actually going on here?
We're actually in a very good place with our government right now. We've done many reforms over the last couple of years. And it's not just me who's been banging the drum on this issue for some time. James Patterson back in 2017, along with Tim Wilson, basically scuttled the extradition treaty. In 2017, you had Michael Danby on Labor's side, really making a lot of noise about these issues as well. So I'm just one of many voices, and I'm part of a broader team. And Australians should all take great confidence that we are in the place that we are right now under Prime Minister Scott Morrison. And I played my part, and I'm just glad to be able to do it as a member of the Australian Parliament.
Yeah. Just very quickly before you go, your family lives in Melbourne. What's your reaction to Daniel Andrews' roadmap out of this pandemic today?
Well, the Prime Minister issued a statement with the Treasurer today which said that Victorians would find the roadmap hard and crushing. And I can tell you, my parents are crushed by this, as is my other family members and friends in Melbourne. This is hard. This is going to be a long road out. And my heart is with Victorians. They're in a really difficult place right now. And I'm worried about small businesses. I'm worried about people's mental health and well-being, people who can't meet with one another and enjoy those benefits that community brings. So this is really, really tough.
Yeah. Andrew Hastie, thank you very much for your time this evening, as always, but especially on a Sunday and on Father's Day.
Thanks, Sharri. Always a pleasure.